My granddaughter was betrayed by her friend, but I protected her carefully. I've lived 71 years on this earth, and if there's one truth I've learned, it's this: the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people we invite into our hearts, the ones we trust with our secrets, our joys, our vulnerable moments. When I watched my sweet Emma's world shatter because of a girl she called her best friend, something ancient and protective awakened inside me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. But I watched, I waited, and I moved like water, slowly, carefully, until justice found its way home. This is that story. Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to Grandma Alice Stories, where I share the lessons life has carved into my heart. If you're new here, pull up a chair and stay a while. And if my stories touch your soul, would you do this old woman a favor? Subscribe to my channel and help me reach 1,000 subscribers before next week. Your support means the world to me. Now, let me tell you about the day I realized my granddaughter needed me more than ever. It was a warm September afternoon when Emma first brought Sarah home. I remember because the light came through my kitchen windows in that golden way it does just before autumn truly settles in, and the two girls burst through my front door like twin rays of sunshine, their laughter filling every corner of my quiet house. "Grandma! Grandma!" Emma called out, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "This is Sarah. She's in my music class, and she plays violin too." Sarah was a pretty girl, dark curls framing a heart-shaped face, bright eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She smiled at me, all politeness and charm, and extended her small hand for me to shake. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Henderson. Emma talks about you all the time." I took her hand, noting how firm her grip was, how steady her gaze. Something flickered in those eyes, something I couldn't quite name then. But I've learned to trust my instincts, even when they whisper warnings I don't want to hear. "Welcome, dear," I said warmly, releasing her hand. "Emma's friends are always welcome here. Would you girls like some cookies? I made oatmeal raisin this morning." They squealed with delight and settled at my kitchen table, their backpacks tossed carelessly on the floor, their voices tumbling over each other as they talked about school, teachers, upcoming events. I watched them while I poured glasses of milk, noting how Emma glowed with happiness. My granddaughter had always been a sensitive soul, thoughtful, kind, perhaps too trusting for this sharp-edged world. After her parents divorced 2 years ago, she'd withdrawn into herself, spending more time with her violin than with other children. Seeing her so animated, so open with this new friend, warmed my heart. But even then, even in that golden moment, I noticed small things. The way Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly when I complimented Emma's playing. The tightness around her mouth when Emma mentioned winning a school music competition. The way she redirected conversations away from Emma's achievements and toward her own accomplishments. Subtly, skillfully, like someone who'd practiced this dance before. I said nothing. Children need to navigate their own friendships, make their own mistakes, discover their own truths. My job was simply to be there, to watch, to catch her if she fell. Over the following months, Sarah became a constant presence in Emma's life. Sleepovers every weekend, matching bracelets they wore religiously, secret handshakes and inside jokes. Emma bloomed under the attention, her confidence growing, her smile returning. She practiced her violin with renewed passion, often FaceTiming Sarah to share her progress. "We're going to be famous violinists together, Grandma," Emma told me one evening, her eyes shining with dreams. "Sarah and I are going to tour the world." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "That sounds beautiful, sweetheart." But I kept watching, and the more I watched, the more I saw. Sarah borrowed Emma's sheet music and returned it late. She accidentally broke Emma's favorite bow during a playdate, though the apology seemed rehearsed. She often showed up when Emma was celebrating something. A good grade, recognition from their music teacher, and somehow managed to dim Emma's joy with her own competing stories. My daughter Rebecca, Emma's mother, noticed nothing. She was grateful Emma had found a friend, grateful for the distraction from the divorce, grateful to see her daughter happy again. When I gently mentioned my concerns, she waved them away. "Mom, you worry too much. Sarah seems like a sweet girl. Emma needs this friendship." Perhaps she was right. Perhaps I was just an old woman seeing shadows where only light existed. So I held my tongue and continued to observe. Then came the announcement about the spring talent show. Emma rushed into my house after school, breathless with excitement. "Grandma, the talent show is in 6 weeks. I'm going to perform Vivaldi's Spring from the Four Seasons. It's so beautiful. And if I do well, the music director said I might get recommended for the Youth Symphony." I hugged her tight, feeling her heart racing against mine. "That's wonderful, darling. You'll be magnificent." "Sarah's performing too," Emma continued, pulling back to look at me. "She's doing a piano piece. We're going to practice together and help each other." Something cold settled in my chest then. A grandmother's intuition, ancient and sure. But I smiled and nodded, watching as Emma pulled out her violin and began to practice. Her fingers dancing across the strings, her face transformed by the music she created. For the next 5 weeks, Emma practiced relentlessly. She worked with her music teacher after school. She recorded herself and analyzed every note. She asked Sarah for feedback, trusting her friend's opinion as much as her own. The piece was challenging, full of rapid passages and delicate harmonies, but Emma was determined. I'd never seen her so focused, so driven. Sarah came over often during those weeks, ostensibly to practice her own piece and offer support. But I noticed how she watched Emma play, her eyes cataloging every movement, every technique. I noticed how she asked detailed questions about Emma's interpretation, her phrasing, her emotional approach to the music. "You're so lucky to have such natural talent," Sarah said one afternoon, her voice honeyed with something that wasn't quite admiration. "I have to work so hard for every little bit of improvement." Emma, sweet Emma, didn't hear the edge beneath those words. She only heard her friend's compliment and blushed with pleasure. The night before the talent show, Sarah asked if she could come over one last time to hear Emma's final run-through. Emma was thrilled. She wanted to perform for her best friend, to share her nervousness and excitement. They practiced in Emma's room for hours. I could hear Emma's violin singing through the house, each note clear and confident. Then there was talking, laughter, the rustling of papers. When Sarah finally left that evening, she hugged Emma tight. "You're going to be amazing tomorrow," she whispered. "I'm so proud to be your friend." After Sarah left, I found Emma in her room, organizing her sheet music for the next day. She seemed calm, ready, her violin case packed and waiting by the door. "How do you feel, sweetheart?" I asked from the doorway. She turned to me, her face glowing. "Ready, Grandma. I'm finally ready." I kissed her goodnight and went to my room, but sleep didn't come easily. Something felt wrong. A tension in the air, a wrongness I couldn't name. I lay awake until dawn, listening to the house settle around me, wondering what tomorrow would bring. The next afternoon, I received a phone call from Rebecca. Her voice was tight, confused, barely holding back tears. "Mom," she said quietly, "something happened at the talent show. Emma won't talk to me. She's locked herself in her room. Can you come over? Please." My hands went cold. My heart knew before my mind did. "I'm on my way," I whispered, and as I grabbed my keys and rushed to my car, one terrible thought echoed through my mind. What did that girl do to my granddaughter? The drive to Rebecca's house felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, and my mind raced through 1,000 terrible possibilities. What could have happened at that talent show? What had Sarah done? Because deep in my bones, I knew. That girl was at the center of whatever had broken my Emma's heart. Rebecca met me at the door, her face pale and drawn. She'd been crying. I could see the redness around her eyes, the way her hands trembled as she reached for me. "She won't come out," Rebecca whispered, glancing up the stairs toward Emma's closed bedroom door. "She came home 2 hours ago, ran straight to her room, and I haven't heard a sound since. Mom, I don't know what to do. The school called and said there was an incident at the talent show, but they wouldn't tell me what happened. They want to schedule a meeting tomorrow." I touched my daughter's cheek gently, the way I used to when she was small and frightened. "Let me talk to her." Rebecca nodded, relief flooding her features. "Thank you, Mom. She'll listen to you. She always does." I climbed those stairs slowly, each step heavy with dread. Emma's door was indeed locked, and when I knocked softly, there was no response. Only silence, thick and suffocating. "Emma, sweetheart," I called gently. "It's Grandma. I'm not going anywhere until you open this door." Nothing. I waited, my hand pressed flat against the wood, sending all my love through that barrier between us. "I know something terrible happened today, and I know you're hurting, but hiding in there alone won't make it better. Please, darling, let me in." A long moment passed. Then I heard it. A small, broken sound, like a wounded animal trying not to cry. The lock clicked, and the door opened just a crack. Emma stood there, and my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Her face was blotchy and swollen from crying. Her eyes, those beautiful hazel eyes that usually sparkled with life, were hollow and dead. She'd changed out of the pretty dress she'd worn for the performance, now wearing oversized sweatpants and one of her father's old t-shirts, as if trying to disappear inside the fabric. "Oh, my darling girl," I whispered, opening my arms. She collapsed into me and the dam broke. Great, heaving sobs tore from her chest, soaking my shoulder as I held her, stroking her hair, making soft shushing sounds that had comforted 3 generations of hurting children. We stood like that for what felt like forever, until her tears finally slowed and her breathing steadied. I guided her to the bed, sat beside her, and waited. Patience is a grandmother's greatest weapon. We don't demand. We don't push. We simply wait until our children are ready to speak their truths. Finally, in a voice so small I had to lean in to hear it, Emma began to talk. "I got to school early," she said, staring at her hands. "I wanted to warm up, make sure everything was perfect. I went to the music room where I'd left my violin case and my sheet music in my assigned locker. But when I opened it," her voice cracked, "my sheet music was gone, Grandma. The original copy with all my notes, all my markings, everything I'd worked on for weeks. Just gone." My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "What did you do?" I panicked. I searched everywhere. I asked the music teacher, checked the practice rooms, looked through every folder in the music room. Nothing. The teacher said she'd make an announcement, but the show was starting in an hour, and without my music. Emma's eyes filled with fresh tears. I tried to play from memory, but it's so complicated, and I was so nervous, and I kept thinking maybe someone had accidentally taken it, or maybe I'd misplaced it, and "Breathe, sweetheart," I whispered, rubbing circles on her back. "What happened at the show?" Emma's face crumpled. "Sarah performed right before me. They called her name, and she walked out on stage with her violin." "Her violin?" I interrupted, my blood running cold. "I thought she played piano." "That's what I thought too." Emma's voice was hollow now, emotionless, as if she'd retreated somewhere deep inside herself where the pain couldn't reach. "But she had a violin. And Grandma, she played my piece. She played Spring from the Four Seasons, exactly the way I'd been practicing it. All my interpretations, all my phrasing, everything. Even the little variations I'd worked out with my teacher. It was like watching myself on stage, except it wasn't me. I felt rage. Pure, white-hot rage. Bloom in my chest. But I kept my face neutral, my voice steady. "How did the audience react?" "They loved it." Emma laughed bitterly. They gave her a standing ovation. The music director told her it was the most beautiful student performance he'd heard in years. And Sarah, she stood up there and smiled and bowed, and she looked right at me in the wings. Grandma. She looked right at me, and she smiled. And then it was my turn. I walked out there without my music, tried to play from memory, and Emma covered her face with her hands. I messed up in the first 30 seconds. I couldn't remember the fingering for the difficult passages. I got lost, stopped in the middle, and just stood there while everyone stared. The music director had to come out and escort me off stage. It was the most humiliating moment of my entire life. I pulled her close again, my mind already working, already planning. Did you tell anyone? Did you tell the music director that Sarah stole your piece? I tried, Emma whispered. Backstage, I confronted her. I asked her where my sheet music was, why she'd played my piece. She looked at me like I was crazy. She said, "What are you talking about? I've been working on this Vivaldi piece all semester. Everyone knows that." And when I insisted, when I said it was my piece, she started crying. She said I was being a terrible friend, that I was jealous of her success, that she couldn't believe I'd accuse her of something so awful. And people believed her? Emma nodded miserably. Other students gathered around. They'd seen Sarah carrying her violin case to school for the past week. They'd heard her mention practicing Vivaldi in conversation. She'd planned it all perfectly, Grandma. She set it all up so that when I accused her, I would look like the crazy one, like the jealous, bitter friend trying to steal credit for her hard work. The picture became crystal clear then. Sarah hadn't just stolen Emma's piece. She'd stolen her credibility, her reputation, her sense of reality itself. She'd gaslit my granddaughter in front of their entire peer group, making Emma question her own truth. "Where is your sheet music now?" I asked quietly. "I don't know. Probably destroyed. She took it from my locker yesterday. It had to be her. She was the only other person who knew my combination because I'd given it to her in case of emergency." Emma looked up at me, her eyes red and pleading. "Grandma, I feel so stupid. You tried to warn me, didn't you? I saw the way you watched her. But I didn't want to believe that my best friend could betray you," I finished softly. "Oh, my darling girl, you're not stupid. You're trusting. You're kind. You see the best in people." And Sarah took advantage of those beautiful qualities. "What do I do now?" Emma asked, and in her voice I heard not just the question about this situation, but the bigger question underneath. How do I trust anyone ever again? I took her face in my hands, looked into those wounded eyes, and made her a promise. "You do nothing," I said firmly. "You rest. You heal. You let your grandmother handle this." "But Grandma..." "Listen to me, Emma. Sometimes in life we meet people who are so broken inside, so consumed by envy and insecurity, that they'll do anything to tear down the people around them. Sarah is one of those people. And while I will not shield you from learning that such people exist, I can make sure she learns that actions have consequences." Emma searched my face. "What are you going to do?" I smiled then. A small, knowing smile that held 71 years of accumulated wisdom and a grandmother's fierce, protective love. "I'm going to do what I should have done weeks ago," I said quietly. "I'm going to protect my granddaughter." That night, after Emma finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, I sat in Rebecca's kitchen with my laptop open and my reading glasses perched on my nose. I wasn't some helpless old woman who didn't understand modern technology. I knew how to gather evidence. I knew how to build a case. And as I opened Emma's cloud storage account, the one I had access to because I'd helped her set it up, and saw months of dated practice videos, time-stamped recordings, and detailed notes on her interpretation of Vivaldi's Spring, I knew exactly what needed to happen next. Sarah had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated a grandmother's love, and that, my dear friends, would be her undoing. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I've always believed that justice, real justice, is served with precision, patience, and an unshakable commitment to the truth. Sarah had woven her web of lies carefully, but what she didn't understand was that lies, no matter how well constructed, always have threads that can be pulled. And I was about to pull every single one. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at Rebecca's kitchen table, the glow of my laptop illuminating my face as I methodically compiled evidence. Emma's cloud storage was a treasure trove. Dozens of practice videos dating back 7 weeks, each one timestamped and geotagged. Videos of her working through difficult passages, perfecting her interpretation, adding the unique flourishes that had made her performance so distinctly hers. The videos Sarah had stolen. I downloaded everything onto a flash drive, then moved to Emma's email account. There, I found correspondence with her music teacher, Mrs. Patterson, discussing Emma's choice of piece, her progress, her ambitious goal of earning a youth symphony recommendation. The emails were dated 2 months back, long before Sarah had allegedly been working on this Vivaldi piece all semester. But I needed more. I needed irrefutable proof that would leave no room for doubt. At 6 in the morning, I called an old friend, Margaret Chen, who'd retired from teaching at the same school 5 years ago, but still volunteered in the music program. Margaret knew everyone, saw everything, and most importantly, she understood the politics of protecting children. Alice. Her voice was groggy with sleep. It's barely dawn. What's wrong? I need your help, Margaret. It's about Emma. I heard her sit up, instantly alert. Margaret had known Emma since she was small. Tell me everything. I did. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every moment of Sarah's calculated betrayal. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. That poor child, Margaret finally whispered. And you're certain Sarah planned this? As certain as I am that the sun will rise, I replied. But I need to know something. Has Sarah been carrying a violin case to school? Other students claim they saw her with one. Give me an hour, Margaret said. I'll make some calls. True to her word, Margaret called back at 7:30 with information that made my blood boil. Sarah rented a violin from the school music program exactly 8 days ago, Margaret reported. She told Mrs. Patterson she wanted to switch from piano to violin for the talent show. Mrs. Patterson was surprised but supportive. Sarah claimed she'd been taking private lessons for months and wanted to showcase her progress. Private lessons, I repeated, my voice flat. Did Mrs. Patterson verify this? She didn't have reason to doubt a student. Sarah brought in what appeared to be a practice log signed by an instructor. Of course, now that I've looked into it, the instructor's name doesn't match any registered music teacher in the area. A forged practice log. This child had committed fraud, theft, and defamation. My hands trembled with rage, but I forced myself to stay focused. Margaret, I need one more favor. Can you find out if the talent show was recorded? The school always records performances for the archives. Why? Because I'm going to need footage of Sarah's performance. And I'm going to need a meeting with Principal Morrison, Mrs. Patterson, and Sarah's parents. Today. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Alice, are you sure? These are serious accusations. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong, I said quietly. And if I don't act now, Emma will carry this betrayal for the rest of her life. She'll learn that speaking up gets you nowhere, that liars win, that friendship is a weapon. I won't let that be her lesson, Margaret. I won't. Then I'll make it happen. Give me 2 hours. By noon, I sat in Principal Morrison's office, flanked by Rebecca and Emma. Across from us sat Sarah and her parents, a well-dressed couple who'd already begun the meeting with thinly veiled hostility. I don't appreciate my daughter being pulled out of class for this, Sarah's mother, Patricia, said coldly, especially based on what I understand are unfounded accusations from a student who performed poorly and is looking for someone to blame. Principal Morrison, A kind-faced woman in her 50s raised a hand. "Mrs. Chun, please. Let's hear what Mrs. Henderson has to say before we make any judgments." I opened my folder calmly, pulling out printed screenshots, video timestamps, and email correspondence. "Thank you, Principal Morrison. I'll make this brief because the evidence speaks for itself." I placed the first document on the desk, Emma's email to Mrs. Patterson from 2 months ago, clearly stating her intention to perform Vivaldi's Spring for the talent show. As you can see, Emma chose and announced her piece in early February. Mrs. Patterson can confirm this. Mrs. Patterson, sitting beside the principal, nodded. "That's correct." Emma was very excited about the challenge. I placed the next set of documents, printed screenshots from Emma's practice videos, each clearly dated and timestamped. These are practice recordings spanning 7 weeks. As you can see, Emma developed a very specific interpretation of the piece, including unique phrasing choices and dynamic variations. Sarah's father leaned forward, frowning. "What does this prove?" "Sarah also practiced for weeks." "Did she?" I met his eyes steadily. Because according to the school's rental records, Sarah only checked out a violin 8 days before the performance. And according to these phone records, I placed another document on the desk. Emma's sheet music disappeared from her locker the afternoon before the show, at approximately 3:15. Sarah was the last person to visit Emma's room that evening, and she was the only other student who knew Emma's locker combination. Sarah's face had gone pale. That's not proof of anything. Maybe Emma misplaced her music. Maybe she's lying about giving me her combination. Perhaps, I said quietly. Which is why I also requested footage of both performances from yesterday's talent show. I turned my laptop around, showing 2 videos side by side, Emma's practice recording from a week ago, and Sarah's performance from the talent show. I pressed play. The room fell silent as the same piece played simultaneously on both screens. The phrasing was identical. The dynamic choices matched perfectly. Even the small mistake Emma had made in measure 47. A slight hesitation she'd kept in her interpretation because she felt it added emotional weight. Sarah had replicated exactly. Either this is the most extraordinary coincidence in musical history, I said softly, or Sarah watched Emma's practice videos and memorized her interpretation note for note. Mrs. Patterson leaned forward, her expression troubled. "Sarah, when you auditioned your piece for me 3 days before the show, you told me you'd developed this interpretation through months of private study. That was a lie, wasn't it?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears, the same performance I'd seen her use on Emma. I was inspired by Emma's playing. I didn't think it was wrong to learn from my friend. "Learning is one thing," Principal Morrison said firmly. "Theft and fraud are another." "Sarah, did you take Emma's sheet music?" "No, I would never. The school has security cameras in the hallways," I interrupted quietly. "I believe if we review footage from the afternoon before the show, we'll see exactly who accessed Emma's locker." The room went completely still. Sarah's parents exchanged horrified glances. Sarah herself seemed to shrink in her chair, and I saw the exact moment her careful facade cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt her," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face now. Real ones this time. Emma's so talented. Everything comes so easily to her. I worked so hard, practiced so much, but I'm never as good. I thought if I could just perform once like she does, if I could just feel what it's like to be the best." Her voice broke. I didn't think about how it would make her feel. I just wanted to win. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Patricia looked devastated. "Sarah, what have you done?" "What she's done," Principal Morrison said quietly, "is commit academic fraud, theft, and defamation. These are serious offenses with serious consequences." I looked at Emma then, sitting beside her mother, watching as the truth she'd always known was finally, officially acknowledged. The relief on her face was palpable, But so was the sadness. She'd lost a friend today, or rather, she'd discovered she never truly had one. The consequences came swiftly. Sarah was stripped of her first-place award, suspended for 2 weeks, and required to write formal apologies to Emma, the school, and the music program. Her parents were horrified and cooperative, promising counseling and consequences at home. But more than official punishment, Sarah faced something more powerful: social consequence. Word spread quickly through the school. Other students began sharing their own stories of Sarah's competitive manipulations, her subtle put-downs disguised as friendship, her pattern of taking credit for others' work. The girl who'd seemed so popular suddenly found herself isolated, her reputation in ruins. A week later, Emma was invited to perform her Vivaldi piece at a special school assembly. This time, with her music safely in hand and her grandmother in the audience, she played beautifully. The standing ovation was genuine, earned. Hers. That evening, Emma and I sat on my porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her. "Grandma," she said softly, "how did you know to save all that evidence? How did you know what to do?" I smiled, kissing the top of her head. "Because I've lived long enough to know that the truth always matters, even when it's hard. And because protecting the people we love sometimes means being their voice when they can't speak for themselves. I'm sorry I didn't listen when you tried to warn me about Sarah. Oh, sweetheart, you needed to learn that lesson in your own time, in your own way. My job wasn't to prevent the pain. It was to make sure the pain didn't break you." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "I don't think I'll ever trust anyone that easily again." "Good," I said gently. "Trust should be earned, not given freely. But don't let one broken person make you afraid to open your heart. There are good friends out there, Emma. Real friends who will celebrate your light instead of trying to steal it." She nodded against my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. Some lessons I've learned can only be taught by life itself. But the love of a grandmother, that can make sure those lessons don't leave permanent scars. And as I held my granddaughter close, feeling her breathe steadily beside me, I knew she would be okay. Stronger, wiser, and more careful with her trust. But most importantly, still capable of shining her light. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Grandma Alice Stories and hit that notification bell. Help me reach 1,000 subscribers and continue sharing these lessons of love, wisdom, and justice. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and remember, protect your loved ones fiercely, but teach them to stand even stronger. Until next time, my dear friends, may you find the courage to speak your truth and the wisdom to protect those who cannot protect themselves.